Former NFL quarterback Drew Bledsoe, owning a winery has been a long-time aspiration that would allow him to combine his passion for fine wines and love of his hometown, the Walla Walla Valley. Drew returned in 2007 to plant his original estate vineyard, McQueen, on the southern end of the Walla Walla Valley. The following year, Drew launched Doubleback, an estate-focused winery with the goal to produce world-class Cabernet Sauvignon. Since the very first release, the 2007 Cabernet Sauvignon, Doubleback has received numerous accolades, including a spot on the Wine Spectre's Top 100 list. Drew's vision, brought to life by winemaker Josh McDaniels, remains to be a premium wine experience, completely focused on quality. To further assist the vision of high quality, estate-focused wine, Drew has acquired and planted 4 estate vineyards in the Walla Walla Valley, and recently broke ground on the future home of Doubleback Winery, which will open in 2018. Drew is committed to using only the most sustainable, superlative winemaking practices to ensure that Doubleback will be one of the best bottles of wine you will drink. We invite you to learn more about Doubleback and sign up for our mailing list at doubleback.com. That's doubleback.com.
Hear your favorite NFL legends sharing their stories and insights every week right here on Thursday Night Tailgate with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari. Take it away, guys.
There's no way out.
All right, we're back here on Thursday Night Tailgate, and now joining us and making his 5th visit with us is former Giants Pro Bowl defensive tackle and 2-time Super Bowl champion Leonard Marshall. Let me remind you about Leonard's background. He is from Franklin, Louisiana, played his college ball at LSU, where he was named team MVP in 1982. In the classroom, Leonard earned his undergraduate degree in business administration, his certification in management, and later his master's degree from Seton Hall in finance in 2007. He was a second-round draft pick, the 37th overall selection in 1983 by the New York Giants, played in the league from 83 to 1994. 10 of those seasons with the Giants. He also played one each with the Jets and Redskins. He was selected to the Pro Bowl 3 times in 1985, 86, and 91. He was a part of 2 of the Giants' Super Bowl championship teams in 1986 and 1990. He was inducted into the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame in 2008, and we're very excited he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Leonard, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Brother. Hey, fellas, great to hear from you. How you doing? Great.
Oh, we're fantastic. How have you been?
I've been well, man. You know, just trying to take care of myself and grow the businesses that I'm involved with. You know, it's the same old story with me.
So, Leonard, I want to start our time with you tonight by going back to a conversation that we've had with you a couple of times, and that's really about the fact that the Giants haven't entered you into their Ring of Honor, which just baffles both Bob and I. Do you feel like, are we getting any closer to seeing you getting honored up there?
Man, I got to be honest with you. You know, I'm like, I don't want to seem like I'm Harry Carson crying on spilled milk the way he cried about not being elected to Canton, and so forth and so on. But I think, you know, and I think that it's something personal. And not only do I think, but many fans, including my fiance, who's my biggest fan, Lisa, the woman I share my bed with, we think that it's because I filed a concussion claim against the NFL, and there's ongoing litigation regarding the NFL settlement. We think that it's a personal attack and assault. There's no place for that. You know, my career speaks for itself. I think when you think of New York Giants football and some of the greatest defensive linemen that played for the New York Giants, I need to be part of that conversation. You know, I'm 3rd all-time in quarterback sacks in the history of the club. I've got more tackles and games started as a defensive lineman than any other defensive lineman in the history of the Giants, and I just think it's been quite unfair that the journey that I've had to partake in to get elected into the Giants Ring of Honor.
Yeah, Leonard, as I was sort of looking through, and you've got several of your teammates, guys like Carl Banks. You mentioned Harry Carson, of course, LT, George Martin. All those guys are up there in the Ring of Honor. That's got to make it harder, for you to understand. It certainly makes it harder for me to understand how those guys could be there. And to your point about your numbers, being up there in sacks and tackles and those sorts of things, seeing those guys get up there and you're not being there. It makes it harder for me to understand. How could they put those guys in and somehow forget you?
Well, thank you very much, Bob. I mean, that's the problem I have. I mean, you compare apples to oranges. You compare my stats to Howie Long and Leroy Selman. I'm the last of the 3/4 defensive linemen, aside from my brother and friend Bruce Smith, that had the type of stats that I have while playing in a 3/4 defense. I don't think you amass, over 80 quarterback sacks, over 700 tackles in the course of a 12-year career, and average 60-some-odd tackles a season while playing in the National Football League. It just doesn't compute playing in a 3/4 defense. It's very easy to do when you're playing in a 4-3 defense, and you constantly got defensive linemen running upfield, and creating havoc. But when you sit in a 3/4 defense, where you play a scheme that linebackers are supposed to make most of the plays and they're supposed to sack most of the quarterbacks, you have a guy that does this and does it consistent year in and year out. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, And it hurts me to my heart because I really love working for the New York Giants. I love the guys I play with. I play with some amazing athletes. And Carl Banks, George Martin, Lawrence Taylor, Jimmy Burt, Harry Carson, Pepper Johnson, and I could just continue to name guys. Mark Collins, Herbie Welch, Terry Kennard. Greg Jackson. I could just continue to name names of players that I have the utmost respect for. They know what I put into the game to become a dominant defensive lineman and to be a guy to lead our football team into the successful sphere that it actually went into while playing in the 80s and early 90s.
And Leonard, when you were listing off all of those names, you listed off a guy who's very near and dear to Bob's heart, my heart, and that's Mark Collins. Mark has been a great friend of the show, been on with us several times. What do you remember about playing alongside Mark?
Well, the beauty behind Mark Collins, when he was a rookie, man, and he came in with this real cocky attitude, and I used to tease him and pick on him quite a bit because, he had this funny California hairstyle going on. It was during the time of MC Hammer and all that kind of crap, so he used to walk around in those baggy pants like MC Hammer, and because his initials are MC, we used to tease him, and call him Hammer Time. And he kind of adopted that nickname, and he kind of brought that to the field. He took that little attitude and put a little chip on his shoulder, and became a player his rookie year, and broke into the lineup, made some plays for us to help us. Was a starter in the Super Bowl, and he was just a solid guy, and great locker room teammate, good friend today. Think the world of him, thought the world of him when I played with him, and, love him to death.
Bob, questions for Leonard?
Leonard, it's always an honor to speak with you. And again, when Chris was describing your educational exploits at the beginning, it makes me think how important it was to you back in the day, and who was responsible for that?
Well, I tell you, one of the guys that I really got a hold of early on, and he grabbed me and told me, listen here, rookie, if you're going to do some great things in this organization, I'm going to tell you where it starts. It starts with taking care of yourself, taking care of what you need to take care of, and allow them to do what they need to do to help you become a better player and a better person. So, and that was my teammate, George Martin. And George assembled a group of guys to go back to school and to start working on their life after football at an early age. And, I adopted that whole thing, he who fails to plan plans to fail. So I wanted to plan out what I would do in the event that the cheering could stop and the cheering would stop. So I enrolled myself at Fairleigh Dickinson University along with about 25 other teammates in a program that was organized by a gentleman by the name of Joe Goldberg at the time. And, George Young supported it because, again, it keeps his players out the street. It keeps them doing things positive and productive, especially on their days off. And we continue to grow and become a unique and tightly knit group because we were committed to doing this together. So in 1991, I marched cap and gown right after my second Super Bowl with the Giants. And I finished my degree at Fairleigh Dickinson. And I thought it was the greatest thing in the world because I got a chance to take home the one thing I promised my mother when she was alive that I would do, which was finish school and be the first in my family to get, an education. And although I didn't finish at LSU and I did finish at Fairleigh, I still carry, LSU close to my heart because the base of things started at LSU and, I'm now serving that institution the same way I did as a player while playing in Baton Rouge. So that's the one thing that I can look back on and say, I did get from football. I got an education. I got a chance to, jumpstart my life after football. I was capable of walking out of one uniform and into another one, and that other uniform being a jacket and tie.
And Leonard, you had mentioned all those former Giant greats who are still revered up here in the Northeast, and it gets me to thinking, the practices today are a little different than they were back then. The practices could be, I would assume, could be intense and a little testy back then.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. The one thing that Parcells wanted to do was, he wanted to mix it up. He wanted to play his brand of football. It was extremely physical. So every day as a lineman being, in that system, we knocked the living, I don't know what, out of each other every day. The first 20 minutes of practice, he had this little drill where he'd line up lineman on lineman and lineman on linebacker, and we would go at it for about the first 15, 20 minutes of practice and just, knock heads to see, who was the toughest and who would stand their ground and so forth and so on. And, I think that contributed to a lot of the head trauma that many of us are dealing with, but it also helped us to develop a competitive edge. And if you look at what's going on now, the last couple of days in the Giants OTAs with Snack Harris and the young kid Will Hernandez that just joined the team, I think you'll see that competition or that competitive edge is now being applied by Coach Shermer. Coach Shermer, is actually the nephew of Fritz Shermer, who was pretty much one of the godfathers of the 3-4 defense in the NFL back in the day. I don't know if you guys really knew that or not.
Yeah.
So with that being stated, this is the brand of football the Giants need to return to try to play. Physical, man on man, either I win or you win type of football. And if you can win the line of scrimmage on offensive and defensive sides of the ball, that's a good start for any football team.
Leonard, I want to take you, switch gears a little bit over to your alma mater, LSU. Right, 9-4 last season. They've got Miami, Auburn, Georgia, Alabama all on the schedule this coming season. Fortunately for them, 3 of those games are at home. But how do you feel about where LSU is at and their ability next season to compete with Auburn and Alabama in the SEC West?
Well, I think, Coach Orgeron had a good recruiting season. I'm excited to see, what this will produce. They signed the number 1 receiver in the state, and he turned down Alabama. He actually his father told Nick Saban to get the hell out of my house, because my son's going to go to LSU. I thought that was real unique based on the fact that Nick has still been able to rape and pillage, football programs at the high school level in the state of Louisiana, because of his familiarity with the state and the recruiting system, in Louisiana. So, with that being said, he's returning, a number of stellar players on the defensive side of the ball, especially a few young linemen. So, I'm excited to see what that's going to produce, and hopefully that those winning efforts, off the field, that the time they put in will become significant of an investment early in the fall. I know they come out the box right away with playing big time programs, and I like that because that means they got to step up their game earlier. The one thing that I'm going to keep my eye on is there's a young man that's actually playing for LSU that I've been mentoring for the last couple of years. His mother happens to be a real close friend of mine as well as his father, and his name is Wesley McCoy. He's playing a slot receiver position. He wears number 35 on the roster. And last year he backed up a receiver by the name of DJ Chalk. And that kid went on to the NFL. I'm hoping that those opportunities present themselves for Wesley, but the only thing that's going to stop Wesley is Wesley. And it all is going to be predicated on what he was able to get done this off season and how hard he was working in and out of the weight room while getting ready for this football season.
Leonard, you talked a moment ago about, the practices and the head knocking and that sort of thing. You've decided to donate your brain to science because you're experiencing some issues, maybe some short-term memory loss and other symptoms that people have started to associate with CTE. But talk about your decision to do that.
Well, the one thing that, I figured out is if you're going to talk the talk, Leonard, you might as well walk the walk. So, I met a gentleman by the name of Chris Nowinski, and Chris and I were competing guys with launching foundations to support, cognitive impairment amongst athletes. Chris comes from the WWE world of wrestling and entertainment, and he's a guy who's taken a liking to many football players. He's gotten real close to Matt Hasselbeck and a number of different guys, and he convinced me that this is something I really should take a look at and spend some time with because of my head trauma and what I could do scientifically to change the landscape by being a brain donor and so forth and so on. So, I said to Chris, well, if it's going to take, a primetime athlete such as myself to make an endorsement of this type, to get other people to follow what you're doing and pay attention to what you're doing, not only for kids in football, but for men in football and the transitions that they go through as a result of developing head trauma, offering up the services of Dr. Ann McKee, working with Dr. Robert Cantu, having folks like Terry O'Neill, former NBC executive, work with kids in football, with his program called Practice Like Pros, and so forth and so on. I think it's a beautiful thing when you can give back to the game you played as a kid for King's Ransom.
So, Leonard, to take that one step further, do you think, is the league doing enough now to make the game safer for the current players and then looking ahead to the next generation of players?
Well, I think they've done quite a bit. I don't think they'll ever be able to do enough to satisfy the curiosity and the complaint that come forth by way of many of folks, not only those that are in the game, but family members associated with those that are in the game. I mean, there's so many different players out here that are still struggling, that are part of this concussion legacy. This concussion lawsuit settlement. Out of the 2,200 players that have filed a complaint, only 207 to 208 players have been paid. Many of these players that have been paid have either early stage Parkinson's or dementia, or they're unable to enjoy the finer things in life because of the severity of their situation when it relates to head trauma. So, I tell a lot of players the same thing, guys. Would you want to get money and be paralyzed from the neck down, or have ALS, have Parkinson's, or have dementia, and not be able to enjoy it? Or would you rather have a quality of life with your family, your kids, your loved ones, and be able to memorialize your life for what you did as an athlete, and so forth and so on? What the fans don't realize, and the fans are the ones that should have some compassion for guys like myself, is that, what we did on the field made us heroes. What we need in life now is what makes us human. And for the most part, people used to think that, and I know they had to, there's no way a guy could run that fast, jump that high, hit someone that hard, and get up one more time and he could be knocked down to continue to compete doing that. Well, guess what? If the body is trained to do that, it can do that. It's just a matter of how long can it do that, and how long can a guy function at that level. So that's what many of us have gone through. That's what many of us are dealing with. I would hate to be some of the older guys, you know, the guys that played in the 60s, the guys that played in the 70s, and have to wonder, you know, what am I going to do now as a result of having these severe issues and can't get out of bed. They can't deal with you know, sunlight in the morning. They have a problem with breathing because they have, you know, traumatic brain injury that affects their breathing patterns and their sleep patterns and so forth and so on. So there's a lot of guys that are out here hurting as a result of what they gave to the game of football. And I just wish there was a better way for the league to be able to step in and do something for those guys to help them and understand that by not supporting this concussion lawsuit and not getting this money paid out to these players in a more timely manner is only hurting the game of football and the fanfare associated with it.
Leonard, before we let you go, remind our listeners about what you're doing now and how they can stay up to date with all the things you're doing, either online or over social media.
Sure. One of the things that I'm doing now is, you know, I'm a serial entrepreneur, always have and always will be. One of the projects I have going on now, I'm the brand ambassador for a CBD company by the name of Elixinol. Elixinol is a publicly traded company on the Australian Stock Exchange. It trades under the symbol EXL.AX, E as in Edward, X as in X-ray, L as in Larry, .apple, .X-ray. We manufacture a product that works with the endocannabinoid system of the body. It serves as a blanket to help the body heal. It's the oldest anti-inflammatory known to man. And it's a non-psychoactive product. It comes from the hemp plant and not the marijuana plant. And it's been around for more than 1,000 years. If you don't know about hemp, you need to get an education in hemp because this stuff will revolutionize how people deal with pain and cope with pain going forward in life. One of my other projects and my real peeve is sexual and civil assault on women on college campuses. I'm now serving as the CEO of a company called TuckerSafe.com. That's TuckerSafe.com. We manufacture an LTE device that will be deployed on college campuses throughout the United States as well as resorts throughout the world. And we think we've found a solution to help rival sexual and civil assault in resorts, on college campuses, and large properties and real estate where people frequently visit and monitor the activity of their kids. So these are two things that I'm very passionate about and seem to give a lot of time and attention to on a daily basis.
That's fantastic stuff, Leonard. Thank you for talking about that, sharing that information, and being a part of the show again tonight. You're fantastic. You're certainly one of our favorites, and we can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. We hope you'll do it again real soon.
Chris and Bob, thank you so much, as always, and much continued success, fellas.
Take care. Leonard.
Appreciate you, Leonard. Take care. All the best to you and your family.
Okay,
we'll catch up soon.
Thank you. Thank you much, Big.
See you, Leonard. That is former Giants Pro Bowl defensive tackle Leonard Marshall. And Bob, like we talked about at the top of the show, and we've talked about it several times, how that man is not in the Giants Ring of Honor is a huge mystery.
It's just sad that there's bitterness there, Chris, but he does everything with passion, and that's what made him the athlete he was, and he continues to do it off the field.